Hello and welcome back. I did promise, I've been promising for the last bunch of days that I was going to have another guest on the show. We had so much fun with her the last time, and here she is back. So, welcome back to Who Am I? Mystery guest. None of us say our names here. Uh, Potentially, my name is Amelie Starchild, but I don't know what name you want to go
I think
by.
we went with Betty or Betsy last time.
Betty, Betsy, uh, Betsy. Let's see. Uh, it needs to be some sort of Bond kind of name, where a Bond girl name, where it's sort of vaguely erotic sounding. You know?
An innuendo of some
Yeah,
kind.
that's right.
Oh,
Whatever. I can't remember what her first name was. There was the good head, and then
yeah.
Pussy Galore was the worst.
Yeah, like there's no innuendo there at all. Come on, man.
Yeah, we won't give you. It doesn't matter. Hello, welcome back, and so glad to have you back. We're just talking about riffing about life and the world. I have been anxious to share an idea that I found just a few days ago, and it dovetails so beautifully into what we have been studying and talking about for so long. You will understand it. I really want to share it with you because I want to hear your echo back as you understand it and realize how to apply this. So I got it from Bashar. I listened to a Bashar the other day, and he had these two concepts, both of which I thought were really, really helpful. One was the idea, so we're talking about how the energy of play changes the material game. And this is what it does, and an easy sort of pithy way to remember this. What play does, what the energy of play does, is it makes the fabric, it softens the universe. It makes the universe the softer and more malleable. You can, from the position of play, it makes it like clay. So play turns the universe to clay. And then you can mold it, and you can play with it, and you can do stuff with it. You can, dance with it, and it's a whole different thing when you approach the universe from not the play energy, but from a lower one like fear or danger, or imagine any of those in the lower sphere. What
Yeah.
it does when you approach the universe from that energy, it ceases to be clay-like and it turns rigid.
Yeah.
Can you see
That's
that?
interesting. I had a therapist that once explained this, and I bet you she was into Bashar. That sounds very much up her alley, frankly. I remember, and actually, it was a couples therapist, and I won't name names, obviously,
Yeah.
but it was, in those dark times, and she, mentioned. She didn't say it quite as poetically as that, but she did try um, to put in like our homework every week. She wanted us to do something playful, is how she would put it. And because for instance, the names that I will not name would be so like everything was. It had to be monetizable, or it had to be,
Mm.
cleaning something, or it had to be purposeful, or it
Mm.
had to be, even
Mm.
the music, which they were great at.
Yeah.
Really talented, but it was never for
Joy.
a playful, joyful reason. It was always for business of
An
some kind.
agenda.
And I remember thinking, and so now that you're saying that, because they didn't say, or my therapist didn't say anything about, why the universe behaves this way, but, that actually makes a lot of sense, because at the time I thought, yes, God, if this person would ever just crack a smile, can we just laugh and giggle at things, even if we're at Walmart? Because, I know that
Yeah.
sometimes it gets heavy out there, and
Yeah.
I realize that, doing chores isn't always fun, but you can be playful with these things, and all of a sudden it makes it so much different. And I almost
Yep.
nowadays, I look forward to going playfully to like Costco, for instance, you know, or doing things. But you can also make those sorts of things hideous.
Yeah, yes. You can make anything. It's the state of being that you are in. The way you approach the universe is everything. It's what matters. The other doesn't matter in the sense that, of how material manifestation goes. The video I was watching, the Bashar one, was all about manifestation. All about the rules of it and how it works, and I just thought it was so interesting because you could feel that, you know. Okay, so when I approach the universe from a playful, what is this? Oh, it's nothing. From a playful direction, how the very fabric of the universe softens around you and allows you to move it from where you are into something more pleasing to you.
Yeah.
But if you look at it from a negative state, and unfortunately, it's the state that you don't like that will lock in and become hard instead of, you know, clay-like, and you can't get anything to move.
Reinforce that as to why you have to, you know, be. And of course, this is not the truth, but this oftentimes, you know, that's the thing that feeds people's, you know, if they witness that the stuff around them is shitty, they are not realizing it's their point of perspective on that, and so that almost reinforces it to get more serious about stuff, because can't you see we're you know, this is dire, this is no time for laughs.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle, isn't it?
Yes.
Hard to break. So the second insight also runs along the line of manifestation, but I thought it was interesting, and it might explain a particular phenomenon that you may have experienced, and which sometimes can be discouraging if you don't realize what the universe is doing, and then you pass the test and you move on. This is what happens. So when you first come to some of these insights and you begin to shift your vibration, so you've been getting a pattern of things back, you know, the way it usually happens for you, the way certain negative things come at you, you know, you're used to reacting in a particular way. And then, so now you get some insights and you feel like you are being different, like what you're emanating is actually different. But what happens, what the universe will do, is the first iteration of what comes back to you is going to be like an echo. It's going to be, in spite of the fact that you have changed, it's going to present to you one more time the universe as you have been used to it. And do you get it? Don't be discouraged. It's like one more test, an opportunity for you to be different in the same damn circumstance. Ding, 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 ding. Don't be discouraged. You have done nothing wrong. But if you're fooled by that echo,
Them's some gold right there. Wow.
Wasn't that good? I thought that you might see that and go, oh, because I was doing it. I'm like, oh. Don't think of it as a failing.
Right, episode's over. That's it.
All right. Yeah, don't be discouraged if the universe appears to be handing you the same thing. It's giving you the opportunity to respond differently, and it confirms to both you and the universe.
I love it.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. Okay, well that sort of, see, like I say, you're just wearing your cape the last few days. Jesus. That completely actually a phenomenon that I actually have experienced very recently.
Yeah.
So very, very, very interesting. All right. Okay.
It's a shadow. It's an echo. Do not be fooled by it. And then let's see what happens. You know?
Yeah. Goddamn.
And I feel the same way. I'm feeling like, oh, okay. It's actually, and it's not a bad thing. It's an opportunity.
An opportunity. Isn't that right? Gosh. That is fascinating. I really wish that I had a more concrete example for you that wasn't either deeply convoluted or personal. But yeah, I mean, I get it.
Yeah. During the same episode, Bashar did something which he made a little joke about it, and everybody laughed, and so they didn't feel so uncomfortable. He said, "I'm going to get you to do something that's a little cultish, you know." And so he had everybody.
Hey, listen, I'm good with that.
He had everybody repeating the phrase, "Circumstances don't matter. Only state of being matters." And he means it literally, because he's talking about the mechanisms that bring material reality into being. Only the state of being is the important thing to observe as you're recognizing what you're bringing into matter, right? So only state of being matters. Circumstances don't matter. This was a mantra I was telling myself yesterday when somebody tragically, called me on the phone in tears.
Yeah.
Will you babysit? I'm breaking up, everything's lost, all this, whatever. And I'm saying to myself, circumstances don't matter. This is just a circumstance from my point of view, and this doesn't matter. What matters is my ability to hold my equilibrium and not get fooled by, not get led into the scenario now imagining, oh, now everything's different. Now I am going to have to support everybody until the end of time, until I'm out of money too, and then, or whatever. I'm like, no. All is well, all is fine. And by the end of the day, like I said, she'd turned back the other direction. I pushed her out the door. Everybody loves everybody, and it was just delightful. And now I know I'm going to have to do it 1,000 more times, but it just proved to me, the power of holding the stability of your emotional state of being really is the important thing.
Yep, yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
So let me, I'm going to write down the mantra here, because I like that, but I just I won't be able to remember it if I don't write it down.
I'll go through whatever. I'm gonna pause the recording for the moment. Okay.
Oh, sure. Yep. It's not that I think any of this is so much different than the other thing, but I like filling in new corners of the map. I like even if it's all made of the same carbon, having it in slightly different shapes. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to hear it iterated back echoed back from different voices. It just reinforces the whole thing and helps you have faith in it, even when, I don't know, it's what the mathematics does to me. When I understand that, okay, the universe is mathematically, I've turned the recording back on, by the way, mathematically, I wish I'd caught some of what you said earlier. I went right in the middle of it, but you were starting to drip gold out of your little lips, and so I turned the recording back on.
No, thank you. That's all right.
But I just want to warn you now that I am back. My recording is back on. But, when I mathematically understand that the universe is holographic, and then I think with my physical mind and I realize what that means. That means the information of everything is everywhere. That means I really am connected to everything. That means the idea of God or an almighty force, a connecting principle, an energy somehow that connects us, starts to make logical sense, Yeah. As a matter of fact, to believe otherwise starts to not make any logical sense at all. And the way I've been defining it, emotions even make sense. And how cool is that when all of the nonsensical stuff starts clicking into place in your mind as you're like, oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, gosh. I wish I had really profound all my examples, but this really did. clicks into place. It's just my examples are going to be kind of convoluted on this, but
that's all right. That's all right. Just be natural
great.
and let your heart lead you to what you find interesting right now, somewhere in the realm of this. Actually, there's a lot of leeway here, you know. And just let's just talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. What it's you know, I have been following a little bit of politics, just a little bit, because it's interesting and it's historical. And as mankind, some amount of that is natural and interesting. And
of course, yeah, I agree.
Oh, actually, I had one other thought that I wanted to point out, though, because go back to the idea of play, and isn't it interesting that one of the things that's going on right now is internationally, all the countries of the world have converged on one place on this earth, and they're playing every game they can imagine with each other.
True.
And actually, how cool that is.
It is super cool, and it is an interesting, what's the word, metric?
That's a good word.
Also where we are, and I'd say that not in a objective, absolute truth kind of a way, because it's actually where we are is in all places, and there are the, you know, truly enlightened and profoundly, you know, lighthearted, and then there's the deeply desperate, you know, and you know, circumstantially victimized. And we're doing all those things and everything in between. But what's interesting is when we have these big events, you can kind of get a taste of what that looks like in, you know, from other, like, facets of, you know, where humanity is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's been very interesting watching the, like, moral panic and outrage, but then also some of the, like, extremely profound insights, you know, that people have about, you know, moral outrage, you know, with the everybody getting all mad about the opening ceremony, Dionysian dinner, and how that was a slap to the face of Christians.
Yeah, they thought it was too pagan.
Amazing thing by a Christian, a pastor, no less. It was really heartening, actually, about all that. You know, absolutely just shutting down the idea that we need to attack you know, people for these sorts of circumstantial things because Jesus was about the Spirit and he dined with, you know, traitors and
whores and,
you know,
criminals
and tax collectors and whatever, you know, like, and the guy that was about to betray him, and, you know, the prisoners, felons, you know, he was with everybody, and so this idea that we need to purify everything is scary, and I was like, oh my God, bro. Yes, and this was a pastor that's saying this, so I was like, good for you, man. So that's what I'm saying. You can see the spectrum, you know, from all kinds of things that give you the, you know, or then there was the, and luckily they worked this out. Well, I say they worked this out. Not everybody has admitted that they were wrong about this, but there was a huge, speaking of moral panic, about what everybody was saying was a trans boxer, trans woman, sorry. So they were like, this person was born a man, and, you know, whatever, blah blah blah, and you know.
How did that one turn out?
Say what?
How did that one turn out?
Okay, so this one was especially interesting to me because it turns out that this person wasn't trans at all. They were born a woman. They do have somewhat elevated testosterone levels. But then again, you know, so do people with, like, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Like, just having women have testosterone in their bodies all the time. Usually that just makes them a little bit hairier. It doesn't necessarily make them better boxers. And it also turns out that this woman, you know, she doesn't have, like, a squeaky clean, you know, win record. She's lost a bunch of times. And
she's no ringer. She's no ringer.
She's still, like, so it turns out that this was, you know, some moral panic about, you know, women in sports, which is very interesting because, you know, obviously nobody really cares until we're talking about, like, gender identity, honestly.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the way it ended was luckily there were a lot of people that came back to eat their helping of crow. And there were some people that, you know, basically dissected this in an interesting sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Metric, I used it already, but a metric of how we are. I had a good thought about this, but it was interesting to me just because I do think that when we are more playful and gentler, that's the word I'm looking for, gentler about how we see what it is that we're even up to. Because that's the thing, like, whether this person was trans or not, and we can talk about, like, trans, you know, sports categories and all that kind of stuff till we're all blue in the face, but this isn't actually what happened. And also, on the other hand, it's so like hateful and rigid when we start to go at it from these, you know, creepy genital inspection type of things. And so one of the things that somebody pointed out was actually, you know, we also need to give women more credit in general, because so there was this article that went along with this where it was like, actually, there are plenty of sports where women, quote-unquote biological women, have been better than quote-unquote biological men, and they never said anything about that. They just made it, they no longer, like for shooting, for instance, they made that a men's and women's category, not because the men were better at shooting, it was because the women were, and the men got all sad about it, and they had to do two different categories. And so the point is that they were talking about this thing where we also get way too wrapped up in this, like, blanket idea that biologically men are better physically at everything than women are. And so then we start to get our, you know, pun intended, panties in a wad about these, you know, kind of creepy ways of looking at ourselves and our bodies and our abilities and what we're even up to. Who the hell we are.
Yep. Well, everything is contained in the what direction you are looking is everything. It's everything.
I'm sorry, now I'm on a tangent because there was this beautiful conversation I had with my person about, you know, how they see women, because this was all very interesting to me, because even in sports that aren't, you know, like accuracy things like shooting, like ones that are highly physical. There was Andy Murray that was he's
I know who he is.
A Scottish tennis player. I know you know, but for the audience,
don't
know. And he, you know, he's won gold and whatnot, and other, you know, championships and whatnot. And some reporter was talking about, you know, this is a monumentous thing because you've won the most of these medals, you know, over the years, et cetera, et cetera. And he was like, well, I'm the first man to do that. And they're like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you know, Serena and Venus Williams. And then they're like, well, and then they were like, and he's like, yeah, you know, and that's all well and fine. He's like, I'm very proud of what I do, but we just have to be, you know, this isn't just a man's sport. And
bravo,
good for you.
Bravo,
and the reason
Andy.
I bring all that up is because I was talking to my person about how he sees women, and you know, he has been accused of being feminine for these reasons. That this is a feminine energy to look at women in this way. It's a feminine, it's not a masculine energy or whatever, which I think is a crock of bull. But and one of the things that he was mentioning was, you know, in sexuality, for instance, he's like, you know, I've hooked up with people in my life, and then I was easily able to be friends with them because I don't see them as, you know, some sort of conquest or whatever. You know, I see them as you know, human beings. Like, God, is that a feminine energy or is that just maturity? I don't know. But you hear a lot about this stuff about, you know, again, this like biological difference between femininity and masculinity, and the masculinity being the sort of, you know, harder, sterner stuff, the type of thing that, you know, they are out there conquesting, and they, you know, are possessive and blah blah blah, and the feminine energy is this more, you know, mercurial, and, you know, and all that sounds fine and dandy in a way, but I actually think that's the thing that people are trying to say is the feminine energy or whatever in this particular case is actually more that playful, malleable, raw potential of the universe. It has nothing to do with a man's biology or a woman's biology that has us able to tap into that kind of stuff. And so I was like, yeah, people are calling you feminine because you're more emotionally mature, and in this world, especially in the world of patriarchy, and in the world where we are not allowed to use our guidance systems, and we're not taught to be, you know, playful and malleable, we chalk that up to being, you know, some sort of
virtue.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, there's my rant, and it was probably convoluted, but I got there.
Well, I just like to see, because I often talk about, you know, what mankind wants, what we want in a big way to do. And one of the things I believe that no matter how we change, and when we hit sustainability, when we finally move our systems into ways that we can do tomorrow as well as today, because we haven't found that yet. We have to do something different tomorrow than we do today, because what we do today isn't sustainable yet. So, but when we get to sustainability, I believe that one of the things we're going to continue to want to do is to move around the world and play with each other.
Yes.
And that's why I think that this big festival going on in Paris now, we may not be doing it as much as I think we are going to be doing it in the future. The fact that we've got this big festival in honor of this tradition of playing with the world, I think it's magnificent. It's a huge statement of wonderful things. We don't want to be at war with each other. We want to smoothly and efficiently move around the world in transportation systems that you can depend on, using energy systems that you can depend on, using communication systems that are not gummed up but somewhere so that somebody can divert the attention over this way so we can monetize more. It's where we are right now is not where we're going to be, but I have utter confidence that it will include a lot of international moving around the world and playing with each other, because that's what we like to do.
Yep.
And it's going to keep us from being in war too. It's anyway, I just believe that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to scream in the middle of that. There was a mosquito that was literally coming from my eye.
Oh, I've had that happen.
Oh, anyway, that was weird. I'm back.
The other thing I have been, I've been looking at the politics, and although I am not enormously happy the way everything worked, I respect momentum. And when Marianne Williamson, gracefully bowed out and said, this is something I can't buck, and I get it, I actually feel a lot more confident that what is not going to happen is we're not going to have an authoritarian, I believe. I don't think that Trump is going to win anymore.
Oh, no.
There's
I think that
too
Kamala,
many energies.
The polls look like she's absolutely
because she's young, and so the younger people are going to like her better, and then she's black, and so the black people are, and then she's Indian, so the Indian people, and then the women, so the women are, it's just.
And as much as I don't like the just straight up DEI bullshit of the world right
me
now,
either.
I will say that. Yeah, I mean, given what they were, and I kind of suspected that there was like a piece of me in the back of my mind that was like, this is probably what they're going to end up aiming towards, especially if Biden continues to cognitively decline, which was obviously true.
Yeah.
So, given what our choices have been, I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what? This is a hell of a lot better than what we were faced with before.
Yeah.
And I don't love all of her policies and all of everything about her, but if it's one octogenarian against another, and one of them is, a straight up authoritarian, like leaning Nazi weirdo, or a, just sleepy, AWOL, whatever, I'm like, well, I guess. This is certainly better than that.
Well, I certainly think that there's going to be some ability to maneuver without. So things like it may or may. Okay, what am I concerned about from the position of this show? So one of the stated pieces of my agenda are that I would like to see humanity get off of fossil fuel. Now, it has turned out that, Obama and Biden have put out plenty of drilling permits and all. They actually do really good. So in a way but if I wanted to fight things like the Willow Project, for instance, that's definitely, that's more of a Republican kind of a thing and almost sure to go through if Trump's elected, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's sort of like you're kind of between a rock and a hard place, but which one are you going to actually be able to affect change? Which one is going to get us closer to maybe legislatively based reproductive rights or student loan forgiveness?
And by the way, she doesn't have like a sexual assault record, and both of the other ones do. You can tell that there's going to be at least a little less creepy women stuff going on.
Student loan debt.
She was a prosecutor, but you're right. I actually don't hate. I don't hate everything about even the possibilities of where we could affect change from.
What Trump would bring in, and at some point, if we don't get our lessons, then we're going to get the big lesson. But what Trump would do is he's a smasher and a wrecker. And if we're at the point where where things are, the two tectonic plates have moved, they've got stresses along the fault line and they haven't moved incrementally, and this stress is building up and the whole thing's heading for a big ass earthquake, then we might end up getting an authoritarian that comes in and smashes the institutions that we've got going on.
Absolutely.
And then we have to build up from that.
Recognize that.
And I don't think we're at that place. We are in a place where maybe there's a chance of some incremental change happening that takes some of the pressure off of that fault line. Because I actually don't want an earthquake. I would like to see incremental change to the better, I don't want any more world wars to come in and take down what we thought was the human order that had to be kept. We did things in such specific, highly specific and ordered ways before the wars, but that had to be busted open because there's an unlimited way. There's so much diversity out there in even what it means to be a human being, that conformity had to be broken open somehow. First World War didn't do it completely. Second World War, and the end result of that was women had more freedom, black people had more freedom, servant class had more freedom. There was all kinds of things that opened up, so we went through another one just 4 years ago, but it wasn't a world war, it was a pandemic, but it did kind of the same thing, and it broke open. It was bad in some ways, but there was a lot of really good things that came of that, like people working from their homes, which wasn't even a thing before COVID. And now many people are able to function and monetize and take care of their bills and stuff from home in way different ways than they did before.
Yeah. Or at the very least, if it isn't fully from home, there's this decentralization from that corporate boss structure.
Yeah.
When people got out of factories and whatnot, there's this freedom that has happened that has, and that is good. I mean, we absolutely have benefited from those things.
Yep, absolutely. So,
and I know that hasn't reached the entirety of the working class, etc. But you're right. Just a few years ago, this wasn't even an option. Period.
So you just keep your eye on what's good, how it's moving. Keep your eyes forward. Sometimes your attention is directed to the space around you, and you go, oh yeah, that is what we've got right now, isn't it? But I got my eye on, I'm heading for New York, and although I got to look at the road while I'm headed for New York, and I can only see 200 yards ahead of me, if I keep my eyes forward and my consciousness on where I'm going, I'll make it to New York.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And again, I will say that as much as as much as it's not New York yet, if you will, I did feel a sense of relief when Biden dropped out.
I did too.
There's plenty of things and plenty of minutia and plenty of all that we can, and sometimes I get nerdy about it, and sometimes it actually is interesting for me. It's not distressing for me. But the overarching feeling that I definitely had when that happened was relief, because it did feel too much to me like, there was some clinging to senseless, silly, kind of like, and I'm sorry, but the whole like Ruth Bader Ginsburg thing, and her just not letting go of her position, and how deeply that, pardon my French for your audience, fucked us, and I was like, don't do the same thing, Biden, let it go, you did it, now go be with your wife.
Yeah, you got us this far.
And when it happened, I was like, okay, all right, finally some sensibility here.
Well, I was kind of steeled for, okay, since conditions don't matter, was it conditions? Is that the word? Circumstances don't, whatever. Since that doesn't matter, my goal is always the same, and so now I've got a big boy lesson coming, because I'm going to have to stay cheerful and loving in the face of the freaking authoritarian. And how fun is that going to be? I'm going to have to put my big girl pants on. And I'm really relieved that it's not going to be a lesson as world class as that. I don't really want to do that. I don't want to have to try. So, say if you knew what you know now about the universe, and you went back in a time machine back to the Nazi era. Oh my God, that would be so. Epic. It's like Jesus and the Romans, Be loving and forgiving in the face of that. Ooh. Test me, will ya?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm glad that we don't have to go. I am relieved. And you know what? She's not as bad as I thought she was. She's not as wonderful, but she's not nearly as bad as I thought she was.
She's not as bad as like Clinton and stuff. Like I genuinely, I find her a little bit mealy-mouthed, but I don't love her prosecutorial records, but there are some actual like silver linings about her too, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was getting a lot of it from Bob, just kind of in dribs and drabs, sort of a little bit lightly disparaging, but I know it's because he always reads conservative feeds, and they poke fun and they disparage and stuff, but he doesn't really have anything real to base it on, just I don't like her. But I don't think he feels anything about it like he felt about Hillary, and he will undoubtedly, well, I don't know if it's undoubtedly, but he will probably vote for her. The worst that he would do is abstain. He does not like Trump. And
I know that.
He knows that Trump is an idiot.
Worse, frankly.
Yeah. I think he would have been troubled about Biden, because he thinks the problem is if it was Biden against Trump, then the whole thing looks like an utter sham. Puppets. Yeah. Puppet on one side against the authoritarian on the other side. It's the devil's choice, It's worse than Sophie's choice. It's just terrible. This way, it feels a little different.
I was going to abstain before. because I literally was like, you know what, we're in for a lesson either way. My vote is going to be that I'm going to be one of the swaths of people that are so disenfranchised from this that they're going to have to, address that eventually.
Do you know what is going to happen?
I don't feel that way this time now, so there you go.
I don't either. I think Bob and I are both going to re-register we're going to re-register as independents.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did that some time ago, actually. I think it was at one of the last elections, actually. Because you want those things to be on record, basically, to show, hey, I might be doing these things, out of necessity, but who I am in your polls needs to be reflective of this so that where the country really stands on things.
Yeah. Well, I was a Democrat up through the primary because I wanted to vote for Marianne Williamson in the primary, and that was the only place to vote for her, so I did, and Bob did too. So
I remember that. Yeah. I thought, well, and see, this is where I know I'm an independent now because I tried. I forgot that I was like, I don't care enough right now to re-register. I mean, I care enough about her, but
it wouldn't have mattered really. The momentum.
Yeah, except I would have given her even a little bit more, just like so that when history reflects on things. So I do understand the importance of that kind of stuff, but I was just like, I'm not doing it. So, and that was just because I had forgotten that I had re-registered independent.
My biggest objection to the whole thing was that they didn't do I wanted them to do an actual Democratic open convention. On the other hand, they probably would have bloodied each other, but I still think it's a good idea. Democracy in action. Let's have some real democracy.
Agreed.
But it's almost like on that side of it, the president the Democratic president doesn't actually have as much power as the Republican president. And the reason that is because the Republicans are in lockstep and groupthink with their because they have a different mindset. The Democrats are more like herding cats and a whole bunch of, disparate general, ideas of this and that trying to come together in some sort of a Democratic coalition. It just doesn't have the same kind of, unison generating force that the other side has. And that's fine. That's good. That means that she actually doesn't have she doesn't have the kind of power that we don't even really want her to have. This is all of us sort of agreeing on all the things that we want to do. Yeah, let's forgive the student loan debt. Yeah, and let's make sure that everybody's covered by health care. And yeah, let's And it really isn't just Trump was going to be the kind of person that if you let him into power, he was never going to he was going to figure out how to change the Constitution so that he could stay in there for the rest of his life just the way Putin did. Or he was going to try. Now, he had a different government structure that he was going to have to corrupt, and there was a lot more guardrails in place than was in the Russian one. So, but Putin was...
He could have figured out a way to convince people to give him another term. I mean, he was even saying that out loud.
Yeah.
He was like, well, I was, robbed, so I should get a third term.
Yeah. He was setting it up.
So even if he didn't go full-on dictator, there were other things that could still happen that are like, that's just too much.
So I kind of think that when you're electing a Democratic one, a good personality, a friendly, joyful nature, a willingness to connect with people, a flexibility, there's all kinds of sort of hard to define characteristics that I think are actually more important than because she doesn't have the kind of authoritarian concentrated power like Trump was trying to focus into being.
No. If anything, she's a little ambiguous, and when I say that, I don't mean that in a super insulting way. It's just kind of not.
It might be a blessing,
and that's why she didn't do very well in the first in the 2020 primary. Because she is a little innocuous, and in some ways we could all use a little bit of that, though.
I agree.
I need some slightly watered down stuff at this point.
Well, that allows us to step in and be more of it, because it's all of us, and maybe it will cause us to think more like, well, we'll all help her. She's all with. We'll just see.
And we'll probably actually see her, because that's the other thing. It's almost like we haven't had a president at all for the last 4 years.
That's how I feel about it. I think we're going to
I'm
see
like,
her.
Who's the president? All right, Biden. Who's that guy again? All right.
I watched The Daily Show from the other day. I'll send you a link. It was just the funniest thing. He's talking about the guy who was the host. It's the Chinese guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's really funny, actually. But they showed Kamala Harris walking up the what you call the thing that goes up to the plane, the staircase that goes up to the plane, and the press is asking her a question, and she turns, and she answers the question, and the guy was getting all excited about how we had a presidential candidate that could walk and talk with a head turn at the same time while climbing the stairs. He was just all a dither. It was so funny. And
I mean, yeah.
then he did another moment.
Right now, friends.
I know. The bar is really low.
Yeah.
It was hysterical,
Her
though.
doesn't fly off. She doesn't trip down them. She doesn't, lose her dentures. Whatever else has happened to both Trump and Biden over the last few years. Good Lord.
There was another part in the same show where he was talking about Kamala Harris's potential running mates. And they showed like the five potential. They're all, of course, white men, and they did a funny thing about that. But they came to the one who is in the lead, but I don't know whether she'll pick him or not. The guy from the governor of Pennsylvania, and it was funny because they showed him giving a speech, and you were listening to the cadence. And the host was saying, "Is this just me?" He sounded exactly like Obama, like he was doing an Obama impression. And as a matter of fact, he turned around and did the same clip showing Obama's face while you listened to him doing it. And it was so funny because it absolutely was. It sounded like it was Obama. And so he postulated that perhaps this guy was listening to old Obama speeches in order to, brush up on, and he was picking up the cadence and the...
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
It was all very good-natured fun. I had been avoiding The Daily Show when it wasn't hosted by Jon Stewart because I thought, heresy! But this guy is actually really funny, so I'm going to keep watching him. I'll send you a link. Pretty good stuff.
I'm looking up the...
And I'm going to pause right now. I'm going to pause, okay?
Okay, go for it.
All right. So I did put it on pause for a little bit, and as always, I forgot where we were. So we're just going to circle back around to the title of the show, and I think that our guest has to run. So we're going to say goodbye to her for now. Thank you very much for joining me in studio today, and I hope that you can be with me again soon. What say you?
Yes, I say yes.
All right, so
Huzzah!
Huzzah! Until next time, I wish you well, and I did the I wish you well, I bid you peace, and may the source be with you. It's a little corny, but what I do wish sincerely is that you out there be easy on yourself. Do the best that you can. Everything really is all right. We are going to be fine, and you are valuable and needed and necessary in this world. And so with that, I'm just going to leave you, and until next time, ta-ta.